Good afternoon. Well, last year we held this seminar at an expo at the Jewish Community Center in Boulder. It was massively attended. What a difference a year makes. This year, we're hosting our first ever virtual expo and webinar series. And the previous ones, we've held 3 so far. This is our 4th. Have been informative presentation and very vibrant discussion. So I'm looking forward to having that happen today. My name is Al Manzi. I'm president and CEO for Prairie Mountain Media. I'm also the publisher at the camera and your moderator for today's event. I want to welcome everyone today to our 4th seminar. This one's entitled Senior Housing, Starting the Conversation. Before I turn it over to today's speakers, please notice that there's a Q&A and chat box on the bottom of your screen, whatever device you're using. If you mouse over it, if you mouse over it like I just did, you will see a Q&A and chat. I encourage everyone to put their questions in there, and if you can either use the chat or the Q&A box, and I will, as I moderate the questions at the end, I'll add those in. We'll have about 40 minutes of presentation today and about 20 minutes for question and answer. Also remind everybody that Daily Camera, if you go to dailycamera.com/aging, you can visit our expo, our virtual expo, and support our partners and our advertisers. Now let's get started. Please welcome Marcia Klassen. She's the executive director at Brookdale Senior Living. She'll be speaking first. She'll be followed by Jeanette Allen, vice president for wellness, health and wellness at Balfour Senior Living. I'll turn it over to Marcia to get us started.
Thank you. Hi, I am Marcia. I've been here at this community for 10 years, and joining me also today is my sales manager, Natalie Junk. Today we're going to talk about starting the conversation with your loved ones. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. Starting the conversation, how to begin communication with your parents about aging. I found that if I say what I'm really thinking and feeling, people are more likely to say what they really think and feel. The conversation becomes a real conversation. Carol Gilligan. This is really true. We need to be honest with our parents, and we need to be open. The best thing that we can do is begin and prepare for the conversation. Hopefully today in our little short presentation, we'll understand the topic areas to discuss, identify when additional help is needed, and find resources and support and solutions. The importance of this topic is that your parents are probably already thinking about where they'll be as they age. It's important that you partner with your parents and learn what your parents' plans are. Learn about their plans and wishes and try to keep your wishes out. The gift of conversation is a way to honor your parents, create partnership, provide support, and actually get an early start as they age on what their plans are.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the conversation. Try not to approach this important opportunity as the conversation, but as an ongoing series of questions and conversations. Address one issue at a time rather than trying to resolve everything at once. It's less intimidating that way. You'll be laying the groundwork to understand your parents' feelings, wishes, and needs. And you'll want to get information and to share information. But this is going to happen bit by bit. It's best to start the conversation while your aging parents are fairly healthy, when there are no apparent concerns. That way you do have the time to build slowly and have the conversations about every area of their life and health without panic or pressure. Most importantly, make sure you have time for the conversation. Don't start the conversation if you have to leave right away or there are other distractions happening. This is important. This is about their life. The conversation could start something like this. Pretend that you're at dinner with your parents, having a normal conversation, and you say, Dad, I noticed some of the things that you used to enjoy, like yard work, is seeming a little more tedious than it is enjoyable. What's going on with you lately? Using an open-ended question like this is more likely to open the conversation, and you'll feel more comfortable about talking about his concerns. And remember, you're just having a conversation about desires, needs, and concerns. At the end of the conversation, you could say something like this. You know, Dad, I'd really like to help you find some solutions to your concerns. What do you think about getting back together for dinner next week and maybe talk about some of these things? We could partner together and find out solutions together. What do you think? This way you have a second step for another conversation set up, and it gives him time to think about what he wants to do, and it allows you time to think about what he needs and what the next steps might actually be. Write down your concerns over the next week and any questions you might have. Remember, you don't have to discuss everything all at once, but writing things down is going to help you organize your thoughts.
So during the next week, you'll have time to prepare, maybe contact some siblings and other family members that would be also part of this decision. Maybe get some professional support. Remember, when you meet again, create a safe place. It shouldn't be in a loud restaurant or a place that's uncomfortable for your parents. Have time and patience. This isn't something that's going to happen in a day or a week or two. You really need to start planning, and it's important that they have a voice in their next journey.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm a firm believer in journaling, especially before I have to have a complicated conversation with someone I care about that might be emotional or hard to have. Journaling has helped me organize my thoughts and feelings to have a more productive conversation. Some of the things you might journal after discussing things with your loved ones might be topics for shared conversation. Remember, this is not one-sided. This is your loved one's life, and it's about their desires and needs. So resist putting your plan together for them. Understand what your role is in the process. It's your job to reassure them that you want to be on the same team, that you want to partner in their best solution to make their desires and needs met. Be sure to ask, what's most important to you? Let them know what you have identified as the most important and ask if they have those same concerns. And it could go something like this. I've been thinking about you and Mom lately and how you want to live now that we're all grown up and doing our own things. What's most important for you to be able to live your best life? After you've asked that question, identify if you have the same concerns as them. Then you can tell them your concerns, something like this. I have some of the same concerns as you, and I've also noticed Mom isn't wanting to cook like she used to, and you haven't been wanting to go out and do things as much anymore. I wonder that you're both so busy trying to keep up the house that you aren't living your best life possible and enjoying all the things you once did. I know you're both still very active and social, but it really seems harder and harder for you both to get out with your friends because you're not as comfortable driving anymore. Be sure to listen to their thoughts on the subject and journal about it later. There are other topics to discuss, like legal issues, estate planning, medical expenses, and medical care. Remember, you don't have to talk about all of these things at once. Take each one of these topics, journal about your thoughts and some questions you have about these very important topics. Some other topics are going to be much harder to have, like housing, home modifications, home safety, and overall wellness. These are extremely important to talk about and work through. If your concern might be housing, your conversation could go like this. Dad, you said last week you don't feel like doing all this work around the house anymore, and it's really getting harder for you. What solutions have you thought of that might ease some of those burdens? Again, open-ended questions are great because they open the conversation, and your loved ones will be more likely to tell you how they feel and what they want. Sometimes they're already thinking in the direction of senior living, but didn't feel comfortable talking to you about it because they didn't want to upset you or burden you. Let them know you support their desires and needs.
There are some changes in aging. Number one, we are living longer. There are some increased health risks, especially in this day and age. There are normal changes as we age. but we want to look for signs of concern. And it's important that you have a conversation with your parents. Say, Mom, Dad, 5 years from now, what does it look like? Before there is actually a knee-jerk need that you don't know will come up, because it will. So talk about driving safety. Are they able to drive to their medical appointments? Is there transportation, public transportation nearby? Medical safety. Have they had a change in medicines? Have they have recent heart problems? Are they looking at getting hip replacement? Also, financial safety. Do they have the financial means to be able to support them for their next life journey? Activities of daily living. These are what we call ADLs in the senior world. Do they need assistance with bathing? Do they need assistance with laundry, housekeeping? Are those the things that would be making them home? Home safety. If someone's recently received a surgery and they now have a walker, where are all the coffee tables and rugs? That's something that you need to look at. And be open and honest with them about what the things, if they are going to look at moving, what is important that they keep? Is there something in their family that's been around for generations? Remember, it's an open-ended conversation. And you can say, Mom, what did the doctor say when you went to the doctor yesterday?
So we know finding resources can be a daunting task, especially if you don't know where to start. Once you've talked with your loved ones about their desires and needs, you can start looking into solutions like day programs, home health, companion care, and senior living options. This step should be taken after you've discussed their concerns and yours. Brookdale as a whole is committed to helping you navigate through these different resources. We are advocates for you and your loved ones. Senior living communities like ours can offer support through independent living, assisted living, Alzheimer and dementia care, rehabilitation, and skilled nursing. And we also offer programs for senior living like Optimum Life, personalized living, home health, Brookdale Home Health, and hospice. We're here for you every step of the way. We want to help you find the solutions to your loved one needs and help them live their best life possible. We want to thank you for taking the time to uncover how to start the conversation.
It's really important to do some legwork. There's lots of senior living options out there. Right now, most of us are all doing virtual tours, but we do offer, our personalized living can offer services in the home, which might be a transition before you move into a community. Again, thank you very much, and we're open for questions.
Yes, we're going to take the questions at the end, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now,
Yeah,
now I'll mute, and it's Jeanette's turn.
Yes, I'll turn it now over to Jeanette Allen from Balfour Senior Living.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the Altitude and Aging talk about senior housing. We're glad you attended. Thank you, Al, Jill, and Matt for inviting me. I appreciate that very much. Just a little bit about me. I've been a nurse for, I'm going to say over 25 years because the real number makes me feel really old. And I've been with Balfour about a little over a year and a half now. I moved here from the Midwest, Northern Illinois, to work for Balfour. And my family just loves Colorado, best state I've ever lived in. I just absolutely love the sunshine. It's such a nice change from the Midwest. So as you all know, I'm here to talk a little bit about retirement living and what it looks like during and post-COVID. And to say post-COVID, is a bit premature because I would say ongoing with COVID. Until we have a vaccine, this is something we're going to be living with in real time. So my objectives today, and my screen doesn't want to go. Oh, do I hit down? How do I advance the slide? There we go. So my objectives today are life during a pandemic, what it's like for us in senior housing and retirement communities, how to face the challenges to protect staff and residents, and how to advocate for you or your loved one on the senior living experience. During the beginning of the pandemic, very early in March, we recognized that this was coming and we weren't going to be able to avoid it. It felt like in February we were going to be able to, but as late February and early March came, we realized we were not going to escape this virus. So early on, we stopped programming. We stopped group activity, group programming with our residents. We also stopped our vendors coming in because we tried to limit, this was even before the governor order to restrict visitors. We restricted visitors at least a week earlier than the mandate, and we really feel like that probably helped protect us. Our executive team got together and we did a lot of strategy time, developed some infection control processes and screening processes to keep our communities safe. And we have met frequently to kind of to change things as the guidance on COVID-19 has changed. So it was really, really difficult to take away so much of the life enrichment programming that we brought into the community to engage with our residents. And then it became even more difficult when we said, and we're not allowing your families to come. It was just, it was a mandate from the governor, but it was also the right thing to do. And of course, it's becoming harder and harder as life goes on. So we'll talk more about that as we get through the slides. Our screening process we initiated had asked a lot of questions about where you've been. Have you been exposed to anybody with COVID? We also started taking temperatures of our staff, and if anyone had a temp initially of 99.5 or higher, we were restricting them. We changed that guidance a little bit as the guidance from the CDC changed to like 100.4. We did really never allow anyone to work with a fever of 99.5 or higher, because it's shown that younger people really may not even exhibit symptoms of a fever. So we wanted to be supremely cautious with that. Essential visitors, staff, home health, like the staff of home health, hospice, and medical providers were of course allowed. We did ask our partner providers to dedicate staff to us, and several of our partners were able to do that. They had enough of a caseload with us with home health, hospice, or private duty that they were able to do that. And we really were so appreciative of those partners, because it really helped. If we had staff going to other communities, I really think that that's, in my opinion, what contributed to transmission between retirement communities. Additionally, we asked our staff to choose. If they had 2 jobs or 3 jobs, we asked them to choose a primary job. And we worked very closely with our HR, our Vice President of HR, to make sure that we were keeping people on PRN, knowing that when we got through this, that they could come back and work for us again, PRN. And it wasn't just hard on Balfour, it was hard on every senior community, because many communities also did the same thing. And it was really hard for our staff to lose that extra income. So many senior communities did a little extra incentive for staff to help offset some of the loss in income. So we were really, really thoughtful about that for how it was affecting our employees as well. Our culinary teams, we stopped doing communal dining, because that's where you're sitting close to each other, you're talking, and potentially respiratory droplets are infecting your neighbor. So we started delivering meals to rooms, which was an additional challenge for our culinary teams and our care teams. And it was really all hands on deck. Everyone on the leadership teams in the communities came together, and a lot of people became universal workers during times when we were restricting staff from working. We were a little light on the staff we needed to do care. So quite honestly, we had people from all departments assisting in care, assisting in meal delivery, if they had an expertise in that and a background in that. And others who went through, we had care staff that we put through QMAP training, which is the medication assistant training, and we had 7 or 8 go through that to help our communities here in Boulder County to have some extra resources for medication delivery. We also began doing one-on-one activities and by our life enrichment teams, and we really, with technology, we actually have a system called LifeLoop, and our LifeLoop system is an engagement technology, and our partners at LifeLoop started immediately beefing up their technology on their end to help us enhance communication enhance connectedness with our residents and their families. It's also a way for us to communicate. We send out a lot of our family and resident communications through our Life Loop platform, which there's an app for, and the residents can also get it on their TVs and their smart TVs in their room. And we had to increase the amount of hardware we had. So we ordered extra computers and Chromebooks so that our staff would have extra devices so that we could increase engagement, and as we did our one-on-one, so you could have more people doing that. At no time was increasing our engagement with this platform more important. Families were also able to use the Life Loop app to see tagged photos. So we would take photos of our residents and they could see photos of their loved ones participating with staff. Overall, the effect on residents, our residents have been so resilient, which is really not a surprise knowing the generation that are living in senior communities, because they've been resilient through their whole lives with what they've lived with, through the Great Depression and wars and skirmishes like Vietnam. They've just really been a resilient population. So they've been resilient through this. I wouldn't say it's been easy on them by any means. It has been challenging. Our staff has really become their family, but it's been hard on them emotionally to not be hugging and to not be able to touch and to not be able to get together and socialize. We've discouraged, communal programming really in groups of even 10 or less was discouraged by our partners at Public Health, and we really tried to follow that advice. We did early on purchase cloth masks, cloth face coverings for our residents and our staff that could social distance. We tried to conserve our personal protective equipment, our surgical masks, and our N95 masks for those staff that do direct care and can't social distance. So we put a huge investment in getting those supplies for our residents so that they could come out of their apartment with a mask on and go out for a walk if they wanted to get some exercise and sunshine outside. Even our staff has been asked not to hug visitors, which is really hard on our staff because they have a lot of love for their residents. We are hopeful that maybe with July 1st guidance from the governor that we'll be able to start doing some increased visitation. It will look, of course, it will look different than it does now. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Challenges that we faced and have really, thankfully, most of us have overcome. Staffing challenges. So communities at large, really, when you ask your staff not to work multiple jobs, it affects everyone. When you ask your staff to stay home if they have a temp of 99.5 or greater, that becomes a challenge. Staff was resigning out of fear for contracting the virus, so that was a challenge. So our HR teams in our communities and at our corporate level did a phenomenal job of brainstorming and finding other resources. So we've worked with several partners in staffing agencies and staffing sources to help us, and they've really increased their helping us onboard new staff, helping us recruit new staff, and for that we are all very grateful. They did so much in the back end. PPE sourcing, that's been a challenge for everyone. I'm sure you've heard it on the news. Senior living didn't get the benefit of, like skilled nursing did, of getting supplies from the government or from the state, but our local partners at the Boulder County Public Health, we should be very proud to have them as public health partners. They've been tremendous partners to us and helped us some when we were in the red, when we couldn't get things, gowns, masks, KN95 and N95 masks specifically. We also began sourcing in March and April some very different, not the traditional means of sourcing, and communities have really spent a lot of money because there has been with increased demand comes increased cost, and supply chains were coming from China, right? So to not have the supplies coming from China, where 99% of our personal protective equipment is from, was really challenging. So we would order shipments and they wouldn't come for 4, 6, 8 weeks. So that's been a challenge. And as corporations, we're developing a surplus stock of this in preparation for a flu season that could be challenging and potentially another COVID wave. We still don't know a lot about if you have had COVID, if you're going to be protected from getting it again. There are some stories out there now. I saw one published yesterday that a young lady who had COVID and then tested negative twice did get infected again and tested positive. So until there's a vaccine, we're going to be on this new normal, and we're going to be using masks in public to protect others from our breathing and our talking. So it's social distancing, 6 feet, or a mask if you can't social distance. And the guidance is still that we not be hanging around in groups of 10 or more than 10. So social isolation and loneliness, this has been the hardest thing for our associates to see our residents endure. Residents that were social butterflies were asked to not be close with their friends. You know, they've been asked when they leave their apartment to wear masks. And to be honest, residents with respiratory illnesses or chronic conditions have a really hard time with wearing a mask when they're outside. Staff has had to wear these masks, some of them very restrictive. The N95 and KN95 masks, which we all had to learn how to do fit testing, and many of our associates in our communities did some fit testing, an online certification course, so we began doing our own fit testing for those respiratory masks. But those masks for staff to wear for 8 to 12 hours for their shifts is extremely challenging and can be exhausting. So they have to take frequent breaks to take those masks off. But it's hard on our staff to not hug their residents as well. We've asked our residents to not go outside of the building. We've run errands for them, so they're not even getting the social outlet of getting out into the community. We were just too fearful of the spread of them getting the disease, getting COVID, and then spreading it to residents and staff in the community. We do quarantine residents, which is another additional isolation that is tough for them if they do go out to the emergency room. Emergency rooms are scary places right now. Even though they're taking great precautions, you just never know. Those droplets can hang in the air and they can live on surfaces for a while. So residents who do go out to the emergency room are asked to quarantine for 14 days. When they return, we bring all meals to them. We still go in full PPE, and we do one-on-one programming with them, and we use our LifeLoop platform too to do group programming virtually, which has been a tremendous help, so we can still keep those residents on quarantine engaged. Also, when residents newly move into a community, and we have been doing resident move-ins, it did slow down a little bit in March and April, but I think that residents who have been so isolated at home and their families, their children, started to see that there was some need, that if you think the isolation and loneliness is bad in a community living, imagine what it is when you're at home alone and your own children don't want to come in for risk of bringing in COVID. So we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in people showing interest in retirement living, and they're asking questions about what we're doing to keep everyone safe. So telehealth has been, I didn't talk about the last thing, sorry. Staff and residents alike are sad that all of this has happened. However, we've watched our teams continually stay hopeful and positive with their residents, creating moments of joy. We've tried to share that joy on our social media platforms so that it doesn't feel so hopeless out there. During the Memorial Day weekend, there was an outdoor parade. You could see that on the Balfour website. There also was an amazing video that our Balfour Lavender Farms did, which just gives me goosebumps every time I rewatch it, which is at least once a week. That Lavender Farms video was resident and staff holding up signs with a great music track, and it was a sign of hopefulness that they're okay, they're getting through it, and our resident actors and actresses did a wonderful job. So I highly encourage you to go to the Balfour Facebook or LinkedIn page and watch that video that Richard and his team did. So really, just really proud. I couldn't be more proud of our staff because they have lived their lives at a more restrictive level than the general public, because they know that they take care of our fragile, older Americans living in our community. So they've just been tremendously understanding. Occasionally here and there, we've had to do a little bit of a reminder and a reset, and they've accepted it with such grace because they love their residents and they're very dedicated. So when visits can begin again, it's going to look very different. And retirement communities are unfortunately for the residents and families, fortunately for the residents as well, to keep them safe, will be among the last to start relaxing restrictions due to our resident population being so vulnerable. It won't look the same as the broader community. Visits with families will look different. Visits will likely be scheduled to decrease the volume of people at any given time in a community. It may not involve going to the resident's apartment. It may involve going to a conference room or a couple of designated open areas where we schedule a visit and then sanitize heavily between visits. We are currently now doing window visits with closed windows, so our residents' families can come up to a window, and then between the residents visiting their family, that those rooms are sanitized too, so that there's no risk of cross-contamination between residents. It will also involve the screening that we do now for all our associates every shift, the screening that we do for essential visitors. We have a questionnaire that's really quite much stricter than the state questionnaire, because we felt like we wanted to do a little bit more, and we're starting to allow some travel of our associates to go to campgrounds as long as they can answer the questionnaire about social distancing, masking when they're not social distanced, and not gathering in groups of more than 10. So if they can do that, we're allowing our staff to take some much needed breaks, much needed breaks for them to get away. They've worked so hard during this time. Telehealth. I think telehealth is something that we've adopted. It's become very common now in retirement communities, and it's probably something that's going to continue, and it will continue to help keep our residents healthy and safe and keep them out of the hospital, as a holistic wellness program should be. We should try to manage even our specialists. Some of our specialists, like cardiologists and endocrinologists, are doing telehealth visits, and that will probably stay a thing of the future. Residents and family communication during this time has been very frequent for communities. Some communities are sending out daily communication, others are doing weekly, and then as needed if there's a change. During an outbreak, when communities have had outbreaks, we have stepped up that communication to daily so the families know what's going on. Our partners in public health have done a great job of supporting us through those outbreaks, and at Balfour we've been very fortunate that our one outbreak was very small, so we're grateful that we were able to contain it as much as we did. And I say that I attest that to the staff, the administrator, and all her clinical leaders at our community that had that outbreak. They did a phenomenal job of containing it to such a small outbreak. So very proud of all we're doing to keep our residents safe. And then this extra communication, I think our families ongoing are going to expect it to continue. They're going to expect frequent, consistent communication. I know one of our communities has always done an every other week communication to her residents, and now we're communicating weekly with our staff and our residents. That's probably going to continue in some kind of cadence moving forward. Last thing I want to mention is the social connectedness. That's going to be something that we'll all have to work on in the retirement living sector. Those that don't currently have a platform like LifeLoop are probably going to be looking at it, and there's many out there that do a fantastic job. We just happen to have settled on one that was developed by a family member she had a mother-in-law in a community, and she felt like that was a need that they were missing. I was actually just speaking with future residents of our Longmont property yesterday, and they were expressing some concern about, I think my family is going to tell me I'm crazy when I tell them I'm moving into a community. What do I tell them? What are you doing? So I was able to explain to her all that we're doing to keep residents safe and to keep our staff safe. And she said, wow, I really feel safe now. And I said, and I would be willing to talk to anyone in your family that has questions or concerns so that I can answer them directly so that they feel a sense of comfort. Next slide. So again, enhancing social connections. planning ahead, continuing to onboard staff that is caring and committed. I couldn't be more proud of the staff that we have that has showed such compassion and dedication. But having caring staff and taking good care of our staff when they start, we have developed an onboarding program that's virtual, and we actually have staff quarantine at home for 7 full days before they start. So we've put a lot of processes in place in every aspect of community living. I just want to stress that retirement communities are safe places to live. For a holistic approach, you're getting some socialization versus none. Your needs are provided and you can relax, not have to cook meals for yourself. We have engaging programs. There are so many programs out there, like museums are doing virtual tours, art museums and art institutes, virtual tours. So partnering with people that are sharing their resources virtually is key to keeping our residents engaged and happy. So last thing was to show you our screen on the 7 dimensions of wellness. Wellness is not just physical health, it's intellectual, it's environmental, it's emotional, vocational, spiritual, and social. And I am open for questions. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening and attending today.
Oh, thanks, Marcius and Jeanette. You guys did a great job as usual. I want to encourage everyone to ask questions. We've got the Q&A box at the bottom and also the chat box. And we'll get started. We all know this demographic, the over 65 demographic, is the fastest growing demographic in Boulder County, and it's among the fastest, if not the fastest, in America. So, you know, senior living is going to continue to be an extremely important conversation, as you both said, for our children to have with us. So one of the first questions to get us started is we had one question about monthly cost comparisons for for-profit organizations versus nonprofit organizations. Do you have a guideline that you could give somebody that has that question?
I might have to go to the salesperson from Brookdale because I really have never researched the difference in the monthly costs. I know a little bit more about buy-in versus monthly rental, but no, I don't really know about the nonprofit world. So,
the Senior Blue Book has a website, plus it has cost comparisons in there in Boulder County. It goes from Boulder County, and so that would be your quickest reference. Aside from calling the communities.
The Blue Book is a great resource for seniors.
So in that Blue Book, would there be options for government programs at the state and federal level? Can you talk about any of those things that might be available for people? Because I know we always get questions on that every year.
There are some that are state funded, and I'll slide right back here. Come back. So it is a Senior Boulder County, and then it has resources and services, not only for seniors, but the Colorado Chamber. This pretty much, it's a lot of questions answered in a short book. So.
And they can get that at senior centers?
Well, senior centers aren't open, but okay. Go to seniorsbluebook.com.
Seniorsbluebook.com.
Yes.
Excellent. Great answer. In fact, we had one question about, for both of you, I guess, is who do they contact to get a virtual tour?
We're gonna put a link in our chat, but if you go to balfourcare.com, a live chat will pop up, and you can engage with that person, and you'll get connected to a salesperson after you do that chat with our live chat person.
You can also go to www.brookdale.com. and click on the community or email us. We do have virtual tours and also a little slideshow on our website as well.
I have to say to the group, the virtual tours, we're finding everyone's getting used to it, and they've been very successful.
They have. They really have.
And it might be our new norm for a while, right, ladies?
I think it's going to be the norm for a while, yes.
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 And it was interesting that I believe it was Jeanette who said that during the COVID crisis, that showings has increased. While most businesses have seen a dramatic decrease in traffic, um, are you both finding that same thing happening?
March and April were a little slower, but May and June, we're seeing some need-driven traffic to our website and to the communities. Because of the isolation, I think people are getting weaker, and families, children might be seeing that the loneliness or depression is getting to their loved ones and that their physical needs have increased.
Yeah, I think for us in independent living with personalized living care, it's kind of slowed down significantly, mostly because the assisted livings and memory cares are where there's more of a need. But yes, as family members, take the visit, they realize that, even though we've been doing some porch visits, dropping off summer care packages, which has been well received.
And you're
in my experience too, with the uptick in need versus want, that sort of thing. I think people just kind of being isolated in their homes have started to realize all of the things that they have to do without assistance, and they're realizing that maybe it's time to start looking into something like that. So
yeah. Have you noticed at Brookdale a big change in transitions on your campus from AL to memory care and IL to AL? Have you seen that? We've seen an uptick in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would think the average ages have continued to increase in both organizations, correct?
Our average age over the last couple of years has actually decreased a couple of years.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So,
And I only know that because my VP of sales and marketing told me so.
oh, okay.
But yeah, we've seen a bit of a decrease for the community living and the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Marcia?
Our average age is about 87.
Oh, so it is older.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It used to be higher. It used to be more like 89, and I think we're seeing like 85, 86 now as well. So very close.
And I see that the links were put up there for both Balfour and Brookdale about that you were asking questions. There were questions about. Can you talk a little bit about, this is one of the questions that always comes up, and I'm sure it comes up when you're doing your tours, is what about CBD and what about marijuana, that patients that are using marijuana for various treatments? Is it allowed in your facilities? How do you deal with it?
Yes, if it's legal in Colorado, we allow it. Our residents have the right to utilize freedom that is part of the law. We do, of course, we lock it up as a narcotic unless the resident is administering themselves. And if they're administering themselves, we in senior living, we're required to do a self-administration assessment to make sure that they're safe. But yes, we do allow it, both CBD and marijuana.
Yeah, we've got
Not the smoking. It has to be non-inhalant. It's got to be an edible or a cream or something. We do not allow smoking. That's too risky.
You can make the brownies.
Yes.
as long as they share them, right? And I want to encourage the participants. We've got a lot of participants out there that have not asked questions, and typically we get a lot of questions when we're live. So I'm going to give just a couple of minutes because we're not getting a lot of questions here, and I'm surprised, to be honest with you. We usually get a lot of questions around the specifics of your programs. Let's see, we've got one here now. It just came in. Somebody wanted to congratulate Jeanette for a wonderful presentation. So there you go. You're getting immediate feedback. I guess one of the other questions would be, is there anything, what are the newest things that are coming down the road in senior housing that maybe you haven't announced yet, but that you see the need is out there and you're going to be making those changes moving forward?
I think the biggest thing is we're acquiring more iPads. It's going to be more of a virtual world that we're going to be living in. We're doing some speakers and things. We're not going to be able to get in a large gathering for quite some time. So I think virtual, like this afternoon, we're doing an Active Minds, similar like what we're doing right now.
I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
So you're going to see less in-person and group activities and finding more ways to utilize technology to keep people connected.
Definitely. There's definitely going to be an increased use of technology. And those seniors are actually very savvy with technology now, but those that aren't, we need to partner with companies. I actually researched a company last year, and I need to reconnect with Matt at Groovy Tech, which is a Boulder-based company. But Groovy Tech is a company, they teach anybody 50 and older, which I qualify. They teach you how to use technology. They do it in a way that's engaging. They don't make you feel dumb. So, and Matt was on a national commercial this morning I saw on TV. So I thought about him this morning, but companies that we're going to rely on to help us teach, or our staff that's really savvy to help us out.
Interesting. I do not have any further questions, so I'm going to ask the group one last time to see if they have any questions. We still have a couple of minutes, but
Randy has a question. The biggest fears with the current state of COVID, I would say one of the biggest fears of residents and their families is living in a retirement community, putting me at increased risk, and how we need to be very articulate on our tours about, our sales teams are very educated about what we're doing now, telehealth, allowing providers in that are essential, getting extra services like hospice and home health as needed. We're partnering very strongly with several home health companies and a couple of local hospice companies that have just been tremendous partners to us. So just reassuring, I think, the prospects that we are a safe environment and can holistically meet their needs.
I think also that's similar to what Jeanette said for us. When we do have move-ins, we do isolate for 14 days, but we also do virtual experiences. We do snack carts. We make sure we visit them every day, in addition to taking their vitals and such, which is what we'll be doing for a long time.
Yes, I forgot to mention that all of us have been taking vital signs twice a day, not just temperatures, but full vitals, including pulse oximetry, which residents aren't doing for themselves at home. But with the nursing staff we have, they're getting checked twice a day. And as we all know, seeing a decline in pulse oximetry, the oxygen level in their blood, can be an early indicator of COVID, and could be a sudden onset and a sudden change as well. So staying abreast of all that, having the benefit of a clinical team that is staying abreast of all the changes at the CDC, the state level, the county level, that's another huge benefit to the residents and families that are moving in.
excellent. Yeah, we have a question about somebody who's looking for a spreadsheet to load in net worth as well as life expectancy to make decisions based upon their future housing needs. Is there such a resource?
I don't know if there's such a resource. Do you, Louise? Brandy, in the audience, are you aware if there's a spreadsheet? I'm guessing that estate planners and elder law attorneys probably have such a tool.
Yeah.
in their toolbox.
It's a great answer. I think that's probably true.
There is, and we have a cost comparison thing and what to prepare for that we could send if someone's interested. We could send it on an email. I think I saw one question about our process for move-ins. So we've all been screened. We haven't received our results yet, but we do prefer that the prospect get screened before coming in, and also isolate for 14 days. Movers, of course, you're going to need movers. We do have a designated area. They will be screened, wear masks and gloves, and ideally the foot traffic is minimal.
Right. Yeah, we have dedicated movers too that are just moving into our Belfour communities. And I see a question from Ann, the process for move-ins with the current state having designated movers, but we're also reviewing each referral. Every new move-in is being reviewed with me personally to make sure that we discuss individually what that particular resident needs, very person-centered. To some residents who move in with cognitive issues, if they cannot quarantine by themselves because they don't remember to stay in their apartment, then we have to look at other alternatives, such as a dedicated company that gives us a dedicated private duty sitter. And we have several companies who have partnered with us in that area as well, thankfully. Great question, Ann.
Any other questions out there? Because if not, I don't want to have us sit here look at the screen. So we're going to go ahead and move on if we don't have any further questions. But as usual, you know, you guys did a great job. You've done it for several years now, and we appreciate your presentations. And I know the panel, the participants all appreciated all the information that was provided. So I thank both of you very, very much, and I wish everyone a good afternoon.
Thank you. I hope next year we get to do it in person again. Thank you, Al.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.